This week on Pitchside Weekly, the MLS is doing what the MLS does. The playoffs are absolutely crazy. We've got some interesting names at the top of the Premier League table, and Atletico are one of the hottest teams in Europe. We'll talk about all that and much more right here on Pitchside Weekly.
Oh, yeah. I'm not the type of brother to play with. See a lot of people acting like all ball players sounding like haters. We the young kings of this generation,
What's up, y'all? Welcome back. Pitchside with Parker, another edition of Pitchside Weekly. You can get all your weekly soccer news, everything that I've been watching, everything that's interesting, everything you need to know about. Be sure to drop a like on the video. These videos definitely take me the longest to make out of any, and I hope y'all like them, so show some support on it. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and turn on the post notification bell as well so you know every time I post a video. I know Thanksgiving is coming up, so I hope everybody has a nice little holiday. I know, at least for me, I'm really looking forward to some time off work. That's probably going to be the best thing. And also seeing some family that I haven't seen in a long time. If, like me, you are traveling for Thanksgiving, please be safe. Please wear a mask. Please sanitize. Don't leave your car for any reason if you don't have to. Just be smart about it, and hopefully we can all have a safe Thanksgiving with everything that's going on right now. But with that in mind, today's question of the day, I was thinking about Thanksgiving food, right? And it would be easy to ask, what's your favorite thing? But my question today is going to be, what is your least favorite Thanksgiving dish you've ever had to eat? What was that one wild thing that one of your aunts or uncles or cousins brought to Thanksgiving one time, and you just had to sit there and force it down and smile and act like it was good? I feel like it could produce some funny stories. I don't know. But let me know that in the comments. Nobody even answers these questions anyway. But if you have a funny story and some terrible Thanksgiving food you've eaten, let me know that in the comments below. But without further ado, let's get on into the video. So we're going to start in the MLS this week. And if you watched my last video, you'll know that I am not exactly an MLS regular. In fact, I didn't fully catch either of these games that I'm about to talk about, but Orlando and New York City had an insane game. Shout out to Austin and Amit, y'all alerting me to the interest of these games. I did tune into the end of the Orlando and New York City game, and I was not disappointed. I only watched about 3 minutes, and in that time, I got to see a field player saving a penalty kick in a shootout. I got to see the game falsely called as over when it actually wasn't. And I got to see a game-winning penalty that gave a team its first ever playoff win. And I only watched for 3 minutes. It was 1-1 in regulation. It went to overtime. And at the end of regulation, Orlando City got a red card. So they played with 10 men for the whole overtime period. Pedro Galese was really the man of the match for Orlando City. He was their goalkeeper. He made a bunch of fantastic saves and really kept Orlando in it. I think they would have lost the game if not for him. He did get a yellow in extra time for time wasting, and that would prove to be very important once we got around to the penalty shootout. So the penalty shootout goes on. Orlando City's looking good. It's the final penalty, and all Galese needs to do is make a save, and they win. He saves the shot. They all run off in elation. They think they've won the game. But hold on. Wait a minute. VAR check. They got to call it back because Galese was off his line. Then the ref decides to give him a yellow card for encroaching, which is very much not the rule, and I thought was a very stupid decision. But that means Galese gets sent off. So they go from thinking they won the penalty shootout to losing their goalkeeper and retaking the penalty. They end up scoring the retake, did New York City, and the penalty shootout goes on. And then at that point, they try to sub on a goalkeeper. That is actually not allowed, and it took some time for them to figure it out. But eventually, Rodrigo Schlegel, one of their center backs, comes on, and he has to play goalkeeper here. The penalty shootout goes beyond the first 5. It goes into sudden death even. And Schlegel makes what they think is the game-winning save. A field player saving the shot. It was crazy. They think the game is over. The refs had miscounted how many penalties have been taken, so they have to take one more. Orlando City finally scores it. The game is really over this time, and they can celebrate. And that was just a wild, wild game. And the incompetency of the referees was really top-notch. I have complained a lot about refereeing in my videos. I always think the English refs are the worst around, but this was especially bad from the MLS refereeing crew. MLS has already announced that they will not be able to do another playoff game together, which is a very good thing. But it's still going to hurt Orlando City because Galese, because of his red card, will miss their next playoff game. And because these are all single round eliminations, I mean, they could go home without their best goalkeeper and the guy who was man of the match in the first game. So that feels very unfair to me. I think they'll probably appeal it, but, who knows? But it was high drama in that playoff game. The MLS is just so wild, and it just goes to show. I talked about this with the Champions League this season where it was in its weird knockout format, but knockout soccer is just so perfect to find this type of drama. It's so set up for these types of wild games, and when you add in some reffing incompetency and you add in field players going into goal and all this other nonsense, it creates a melting pot of magic that just makes the game so fun to watch. And so I would highly recommend tuning into these MLS games. I should probably take my own advice, but I am at work like half the time when these games are on. Anyway, let's move on to the Premier League, another place where we've began to start expecting the unexpected. And right now, that means that Tottenham is at the top of the Premier League table. I mean, Liverpool is right there too, but obviously because of their enormous loss to Aston Villa and Spurs' enormous win over Manchester United a few weeks back, Spurs does have that goal difference, and they're sitting at the top of the table. I don't want to dwell on that too long because you know my politics on that. However, you do have to give some credit to Jose Mourinho. You do have to give some credit to Harry Kane, Heung-min Son, and the rest. They're kind of putting it together. I mean, I foresaw them having a decent season. I did not expect it to be going this well. I think it's the first time that Spurs have been top of the league after more than like a couple of games in like 40 years or something like that. So this is very unfamiliar for them. But it's not particularly unfamiliar for Mourinho, especially second season Mourinho. I tried to warn y'all about this in my season previews. I really did. But at the same time, I was not expecting quite what we've seen, especially the excellence of Harry Kane this year. Like, if I'm being fully honest, I cannot stand Harry Kane. It's probably because he's the best player on my least favorite team, but I just never thought he was that good. And actually, if you've seen my Excuse My Agenda videos, he was the first player that ever caused me to think about making an Excuse My Agenda video. And as I looked into the stats, I found it very hard to actually craft an argument that made any sense against him being good. So I just decided, you know what, I'll leave it on the shelf, and I'm glad that I did, because this season he's turned into this like roaming number 10 who comes back and splits open the defense. He's still got the same goal scoring ability, but he's assisted like 8 goals for Son, and he is kind of the center of everything that they're doing right now. And it was enough to beat Manchester City this week. I mean, Manchester City are really in a free fall. They really struggled to create. I don't know if it's the lack of striker options. You know, Jesus has not quite been able to fill the boots of Sergio Aguero. I don't know if maybe it's the defense still the problem. Like, there's a lot of ways that you could look at it. You could pin some blame on Pep for sure. I mean, if you've seen my Excuse My Agenda video, I'm sure you would hear the arguments for that. But it's just not going well for Manchester City at the moment. And they were completely out-Mourinho'd this weekend. City are now in 13th place in the Premier League on just 12 points, even below Arsenal, who've also had a terrible start to the season, but it's very bunched up. If you look at the table, I mean, Arsenal right now are in 11th, and they are tied with United and Crystal Palace, but one win for any of those teams will boost them into the top 5. Meanwhile, there are 6 teams that are within one game of top 3. So, I mean, it's very bunched up. And as we know, looking at a table this early in the season doesn't really mean a whole lot. But somehow, as it sorts out, Spurs have found their way to the top. But they may not even be the most impressive team, because the team that is tied with them at the top right now, Liverpool, had a phenomenal performance against Leicester City. They came into the game and everybody's thinking, all right, their whole back line is out. Salah was in quarantine. Jordan Henderson has picked up injuries. I mean, their whole team is just decimated right now. And they came out and bossed the game as if nothing happened. Now, of course, they still had Sadio Mane. They still had Roberto Firmino, who finally broke his long goal-scoring drought. They still had Diogo Jota, who is perhaps the best backup in the entire league, and he has had a flying start with Liverpool. But I was just so impressed with the way that they played and the way that, despite complete change in bodies, the Liverpool system was exactly the same. And as an Arsenal fan, seeing the way that Leicester City set up, and the exact setup that they went in this game was the setup that caused Arsenal so many problems in their 1-0 win over the Gunners. But Liverpool had absolutely no problem breaking it down. They just ran riot over them. They controlled the game. They never looked like losing. And I was so impressed with the performance. I think a lot of credit goes to Klopp and the system that he has set up there, top to bottom. Everybody knows their role. And they really do have some special talents. Like the fact that Jota, guys like Minamino, Shaqiri, Curtis Jones, who looked really good in that game, the fact that they're not even getting regular game time is crazy, because they would walk into a lot of teams in the Premier League. And again, although Tottenham are top, Liverpool look still the most dangerous. They still look like the best team, and their depth is really coming in to help them right now. But on the topic of Liverpool, I did want to mention briefly, obviously they've stacked up the injuries. A lot of teams have in recent weeks, and it's clear that this buildup of games is causing problems. I actually made a whole video on this last week. The footage ended up turning out really, really bad. You probably can't notice, but I had to change where I recorded this video because literally last week, the light was just like glaring throughout the whole video, and it was terrible. You couldn't watch it. So I didn't post it, but it was a long video, and it essentially came down to the fact that they're playing too many games, and the greed of the leagues and the TV rights holders has really rubbed off in a terrible way on the players, and it's showing just how much these players are just complete guinea pigs. Like, I really feel bad, and Jurgen Klopp has said the same. He actually had a really interesting quote after the game, because Naby Keita also got hurt in this game, another muscle injury, and the frustration was really boiling over for Klopp, where he went straight at a reporter. I don't know whether it was from Sky or BT, but he was basically just like, Sky and BT, y'all are the problem. And the reporter kept trying to, but actually, it's not, And Klopp was just shutting him down. He said, no, it's y'all. It's your problem. You're telling teams who play Wednesday night in the Champions League, they have to play Saturday morning at noon. And it's unrealistic. The injuries are going to keep happening. And, he's right. Like, it's ridiculous that they're being asked to play this much. Liverpool are one of the main teams, and people's argument for not bringing back the 5 substitution rule is that it will overly benefit the top teams, but the top teams are the ones that are playing European football and are doing these games every 3 days, so really, they deserve a little bit of a break. And also, let's not act like all the top clubs don't already have a massive advantage over the other teams. It's not like the Premier League is built on complete fairness and parity across the board. Like, that's a complete myth. So anyway, that's a short version of the video that I made last week, which was much more detailed and researched, but it has really been bothering me, even though it's obviously been great. I'm sure a lot of you agree that it's nice to have this much soccer to watch, but at the same time, it's kind of disgusting the way that the money is prioritized over the players' health. It's only going to get worse because we've got festive fixtures coming up. There's no more international breaks until March, and they're going to be playing 3 games a day straight through that entire period. So it could get very ugly. Anyway, on from that to our last topic. I wanted to talk about Atletico Madrid a little bit because I carved out some time to watch their game against Barcelona this weekend, and Atletico Madrid are one of the most informed teams in Europe right now. They're still second in the table, but they've got games in hand over Sociedad, and Sociedad have started the season very well, but they still have to play a lot of the big teams. So Atletico are in a very good position in La Liga. Barcelona, as we know, have been struggling, and Atletico did just get that win over them. Real Madrid are also struggling in the league, and this may just be Atletico's time to shine. If you've watched them in the Champions League at all, you'll know that Joao Felix is special. We all kind of knew that, but it did start very slow for him at Atletico, and he kind of looked like another one of those players where you weren't quite sure how it fit, how a player like him was going to be able to express himself in Simeone's system. But after a year there, they're starting to be able to play around him a little bit. They're starting to be able to allow him to express himself, and he was very good once again against Barcelona. You could really tell how he was feeding off Yannick Carrasco as well, because Yannick Carrasco is another one of those tricky and skillful players that look a little out of place in the Atletico team, but you need them. You need that balance, because as great as the defense is, you have to have something going forward. And Marcos Llorente is going to win you every single game. But that combo was really good for Atletico. Carrasco obviously got the goal in that game, and Barca looked a little bit toothless once again in a big game. So the struggles have definitely continued there. There's some growing frustration over Ronald Koeman and his tactics and his subs and all of that. Barca are facing a lot of injury issues as well. Ansu Fati has gone down. Gerard Piqué got injured in this game, and it looked really bad injury. So that will certainly hamper the defense, which has already been a problem for them this season. It's really looking like it's Atletico's league to lose in La Liga this season. And I do think in Champions League as well, they could have a shout to going a long way in the competition. And even though they lost Thomas Partey, they have had a really impressive recruitment as well, because they brought in Lucas Torreira. Luis Suarez has looked like a perfect fit for them. He's already scored a handful of goals. And then they were able to do a deal for Jeffrey Kondogbia as well. And so with Torreira and Kondogbia, they've effectively replaced what they lost in Thomas Partey, and they've just looked like very good signings for Atletico. There's balance in the team, as I said, with Felix and Carrasco and Correa and Thomas Lemar, who's found a little bit of like a super sub role for them, and Suarez. The attack is actually decent now. They can actually control games against some of the lower teams in La Liga. And the defense is, of course, as good as ever. Oblak, once again, was fantastic against Barcelona. You'd have to put him up there with best keepers in the world. But speaking of keepers, Marc-Andre Ter Stegen, there are some questions. There are some questions about you right now for that goal that you gave up. What were you doing 10 yards away from the halfway line when Atletico didn't even really have a full counterattack? Like, Atletico were just trying to build out of the back. What in the world was Ter Stegen doing up there? The Barcelona fans were absolutely pissed. All the neutrals were thinking, what is going on here? But I want to take a moment. As a former goalkeeper, and those who play with me will know, I did crap like Ter Stegen did. I also was a protege of Manuel Neuer, and I always loved doing just outrageous, going all the way out of my box, doing crazy stuff. And I understood Ter Stegen. I know that it looks really bad, but the reality is that what Carrasco pulled off to score that goal, he could probably only do that 1 out of 50 tries. Between the nutmeg and the finish afterwards, it was an incredibly high degree of difficulty. And there are very few players other than Yannick Carrasco who you would ever bet on making a play like that. And one of them was wearing number 10 for the other team. The whole point of Ter Stegen doing something like that, coming out that far, and the reason a goalkeeper would ever do that is just to give the attacker something extra to think about. Don't let them run in free on goal and have a shot at you. Make them do something special to beat you. Now, in this case, I still think that it may have been the wrong decision, given that he was on the wing, there was another defender who could have got back, and just given the situation, you probably stay on your line there. But I say all of this to help you understand that we should be talking about the brilliance of Carrasco on this play, not the mistake from Ter Stegen, because it was a dumb play, but Carrasco still had to do the most with it. And the fact that he did the perfect touch for the nutmeg, and then the finish as well from that far out, to me, that is the goal of the week. You know, you stay to the end to see goals of the week. I'm trying to cut back on it a little bit because one of my videos actually got blocked, the last Pitchside Weekly that I did, because I used a clip of the goal. So I might not show the goal here, but if you haven't seen it, look it up. Carrasco, for me, that's goal of the week. I'm sorry. The nutmeg was absolutely rude. There's no reason that he should have been able to get away with that from the halfway line, but the composure was excellent, the awareness, and again, not easy to finish from there. I know there was no goalkeeper, but a lot of your favorite players are missing that. I guarantee you everybody on Arsenal would have missed that. So I was impressed. I don't really feel too bad about what Ter Stegen did. I know a lot of people do, but hey, I'm here to defend him. It's all about that goalkeeper union. We got to stick up for one another, yeah. But anyway, because that is goal of the week, of course, that means that's the end of the video. Thank you to everybody who stayed around this long. There was a lot to talk about this week, and you know, I hope maybe this could give you a little something to take your mind off things or distract you a little bit during your Thanksgiving break. There still will be a lot of soccer on, so I'm excited. But I'm really glad to have, you know, some time off and the chance to make some more videos. And yeah, man, thank you to everybody who's been subscribing. Look out, there will be another video posted on Thanksgiving, so check out that for sure. And yeah, have a good week. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Drop a like on the video, and I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.